Shankara Parvati Pati Mahadev Sri Shankara.
Namaste, it is Sahara Rose, and welcome back to the Highest Self podcast, a place where we discuss what makes you your highest evolvement. Today's episode is going to be about how to become a clear channel to access your past lives. If you haven't heard my episode on past lives yet, I suggest going back and looking at it. I think it's episode 3. And if you follow me on Instagram at I am Sahara Rose and generally just know anything about me, I'm very into understanding our past lives. And I really believe that they are sort of the hidden missing link that a lot of us don't really know about, and accessing them can really open up this whole portal of awareness that we aren't really playing with on our day-to-day lives, and it just takes everything to a much deeper level. And I wanted to first share with you this remarkable dream, probably the most profound dream I've ever had in my entire life, and it just happened to me this morning. So in my dream, I am flying over India, like on some magic carpet or something, and I'm seeing a map of India. And I can see the mountains, the Himalayas, and it shows me this big river that's probably about the northwestern side of India. And in this map, there's no Pakistan and even parts of China. It was all part of India, and everything was written in Sanskrit, and I could read the Sanskrit, and it said Indus. And it showed me this river called the Sarasvati River with the V because it's in Sanskrit, and they don't have W's, they say V. And it showed me, this is where you're from. And I remember looking at it, and I was like, I didn't know there was a Saraswati River, and Saraswati is the goddess of creativity. If you don't know about the goddesses, listen to episode 10, but I'm really, really just so drawn to the goddess of Saraswati because she's the goddess of creativity, of thought, knowledge, the arts, literature, books. She was always seen with a peacock, and peacocks are my spirit animal. They show up for me all the time. And she was playing the vira, which is an ancient instrument similar to the sitar. And she was always reading and learning, and really knowledge was her driving force. And I relate to that so much, to the point that as soon as I learned about Saraswati several years ago, I named my clothing line Saraswati Couture, which is made out of recycled sari material to benefit victims of sex trafficking in India. And I put that whole entire project together in honor of Saraswati because I really used the creativity of seeing these recycled sari materials that nobody was using them. They were just kind of being thrown away, repurposing them as pants, bringing them to the US, which I could do a whole episode about. It was not an easy task. And then selling them at festivals, events, Wanderlust, all of these places, having an online store and really running that as my business, which when I first moved back from India to the US, the first year, I was really focused on my Saraswati Couture. So it showed me this is where I was from, and this is my birthplace, and this is where Saraswati is from. And it showed me this map of India, and Delhi had a huge lake. And I remember thinking in my dream, like, I don't remember big lakes in Delhi. And then it showed me all the way down to Goa, which is where I hosted my Goa Goddess Retreat, which was a retreat in honor of the goddesses. And I woke up this morning immediately thinking, what? I need to look up this Saraswati River. So I text my friend who lives in India. I'm like, have you heard of the Saraswati River? And I look at an Indian map and I don't see it there. So I Google, and apparently this river existed 5,000 years ago. It has been dried up since, but it was the greatest river of India, and it's actually where the Vedas were written. The first Veda, Rig Veda, which then I realized showed up in my dream, which is what Ayurveda was based off of. So the Saraswati River was where Ayurveda and all of the original Upavedas and all of that Veda, the word Veda means knowledge. So the world's oldest texts come from the Saraswati River that no longer exists. It's been dried up. And the fact that my dream showed me this was like insane. And I started researching more and more. This is all this morning. And I saw that now they're doing excavations to prove exactly where the Saraswati River was. It's in northwestern India, exactly northwest of Delhi, where my dream showed me that it was. And Delhi actually used to be a lake region, and all of the lakes have dried up. So this is like, I can't make this shit up. Like, I literally was flying over a map of ancient India, and it was telling me this is where my soul is from. And it is exactly from where the Rig Veda and Ayurveda was written. So this was the most profound dream of my entire life, because I've always known that in my past life, I must have been an Ayurvedic rishi and a yogi and lived in this time, because my entire life I've just been drawn to these Vedic concepts. But to actually have a voice show me on a map where I'm from, and all of these little hints and like things that prove that this had to be accurate, because how else would I have known that this river existed exactly there, and that Delhi had lakes, and that it was called Indus, and being able to read the Sanskrit if it wasn't for my past life. So I'm truly so moved and so humbled that Saraswati is flowing through me. And I immediately Googled a picture of her to share on my Instagram in honor of her. And the picture that I was drawn to, I click on it, and in the description, which I have never read before, and I've read books about Saraswati, the first thing it says is, Saraswati is the flowing one. She comes from the Northwest River called Saraswati River. Like, I had never seen this information before, and it's right there again, showing me this is where you're from. And I'm always very drawn to the water. I'm always, if I go swimming, I will never come out. Like, I love underwater. I'd literally rather be underwater than above water. I'm such a water person. And it's like beyond understanding that these things that I'm drawn to come from my past life. So I wanted to share this with you to see that it's possible. But it's not everyone just wakes up and has these dreams. It takes work. So let's backtrack a little bit. How did I get to having these dreams? Well, I've been a spiritual person probably my entire life, but really awakened probably in 2012, which is like 4 years ago, which is when a lot of people woke up. So I was in college, and I realized, like, just a typical college life and a 9 to 5, and all of these things weren't making me happy. I went really deep in my spiritual process, started reading and studying, and really just went really deep within. And continued. Eventually, I found my way to India. I lived 2 years in India. I was studying Ayurveda there, etc. But recently, and I'm talking probably in the past month or two, I've been reading a lot about like channeling, and it's something that never really appealed to me. I'm not a really like angels and tarot cards. Like, I'm not that sort of spiritual person. I'm much more like grounded and ancient and like practical and traditional, less new agey. So it's never really appealed to me, but I was like listening to some audiobooks about it, and I picked up some books about like channeling, and I thought, well, this is a cool concept. Like, imagine if you could be, I mean, I'm sure there are people who can talk to the deceased, but it's never something that appealed to me. I've never wanted to talk to dead people, basically. But I was like, you know what? The more and more I learned about it, I was like, there's more to this. So I decided to pick up a book about, like, I think it was called Open to Channeling. And I found this book at a used bookstore, and I started reading it, and I decided, okay, I'm going to do one of the practices that they say to do to talk to a deceased one. So I was like, okay, well, who can I talk to? There's not really anyone that I'm like kind of dying to talk to. So I decided I'll talk to my grandfather, who I've never met. He passed away when my dad was 15 years old. And I've only heard about him. All I know about him is like the amazing legacy that he left, that he was a great business person and an entrepreneur, and he could speak so many languages, and he was traveling around the world, even though it was like Iran and, the 1920s. So I decided that I will channel him and talk to him, which is something that I've really never done before. So in this book, it says that basically what you should do is think about that person, meditate on them, imagine their face. I've only seen one picture of him my whole life, so I was just like picturing that image in my mind, and basically to write as write down questions, and then as if you are them, start answering those questions. And eventually, if you continue meditating on that person, they will begin answering for you. So, or more through you. So I'm sitting down on my floor like, hey, Abdul Hussein, it's your granddaughter. You've never met me before. We never really talked, but my dad talks a lot about you, and I'd really like to get your advice on, some business stuff. I know you're good at business, or whatever else you want to let me know. You can come through me. It was like kind of awkward. Like, oh, what are we going to talk about? Like, he's probably going to be mad at me that I'm wearing this, So, I kind of just start introducing myself. And at the beginning, I'm like, kind of like answering as if I'm him. And it's like sort of awkward because I just like know it's me answering. So I just keep going like, well, what advice would you have for me today? And then thinking about kind of not thinking, but just starting writing as if I'm him. As I'm doing this, I notice that so I have very messy handwriting. I don't hold my pencil the right way because I really barely write. I type all the time. So suddenly I notice that when I'm answering as him, my handwriting becomes smaller and smaller and smaller to the point that it's tiny and it's extremely neat. And I write in big, messy, sloppy letters. And it's like this very particular way of writing the words. And then I'm just letting it come through, whatever it is. And even just like the wording that I'm writing changes. And just like the way that I'm speaking is just not things that I would say. Like my grammar is different. I started throwing in Farsi words because my grandfather lived in Iran, and it was so strange. So I was like, okay, I don't know. Am I kind of just subconsciously doing this? So I would like go back and be like, ask my question. And again, my handwriting would change back into me. And then I would answer as him. My handwriting would change back into him. And right now, when I look at this piece of paper, it's insane because at the beginning you can see it's all sort of one handwriting, but as it goes along, the differences between my handwriting and his handwriting are so profound that I've tried my whole life to have neat handwriting and I can't do it, and if I tried right now I wouldn't be able to write that small, but I was able to when I was fully channeled into him. So as I was channeling into him and I'm noticing this, I just start crying. I'm just bawling and bawling and bawling, and I'm not really understanding why, but it's like, it's almost like this like fear of like, holy shit, this is working. Because part of me never expected it to really work. But then also this beauty of, oh my God, I'm communicating with my grandfather that I've never even thought to have emotions for because I've never met him. And I'm so distanced from that. And then just feeling so sad. And he started apologizing for, like my dad, not having close relationship with my dad my whole life. And he just starts apologizing on my dad's behalf as him and explaining himself. And even just talking about it makes me so emotional. And it's crazy because, we hear about these things and we hear about them happen for other people, and we never imagine that it can happen for ourselves. And it can. It like the craziest, wildest things can happen to you. So I did that, and it really just awakened my belief of that, wow, these past lives aren't even this like distant memory, but actually something that we are carrying with every single day. And my grandfather told me, like, I'm always with you, and all of these like decisions you make, whether it's life or this and that, I'm always guiding you. I'm always giving you support. And just like knowing that I have this like person with me up above who's like with me. It's just so, oh my God, it makes me start crying because you think that you're walking this journey of life by yourself. And just to know that there's someone else with you is so powerful. So I wanted to share this with you because It's something that we can all do. You don't need to have years of meditation experience or spiritual experience or be a vegetarian or anything. It's something that we can all do. So I invite you to take an afternoon for yourself, sit down with an open notebook, pick a person, whether it was a relative or someone who you were close to that is deceased, and meditate on their energy and whatever you know about them. Just really imagine that they were there with you in this room right now, and talk to them and invite them and introduce yourself if they've never met you before. And they know all about you, but make it as if they were here sitting next to you, and write down a question that you have for them and start answering for them, and let it go back and forth. And maybe the first time you don't notice anything, but I think for a lot of you, you will. So after I was done doing that, I was looking at my answers, and my grandfather was a very practical guy. And I felt like they were great answers, but it wasn't really that person that I was looking for. I always have felt driven by a very feminine energy. And I feel we have multiple guides, so I felt very, very happy to know that my grandfather exists, and he's here with me even right now as I speak to you. Hello, Grandpa. But I wanted to access this feminine energy that channels through me, and also this very ancient one, because I'm so drawn to not just in this century, in this millennia, but like 5,000 years ago was like really my jam. And everything that I write and I talk about are based off of, the Vedas, these Sanskrit texts that were the first ever applied knowledge, which yoga, Ayurveda, spirituality, meditation, pranayama, all of these things come from the Vedas. And as I've mentioned, I've been drawn to India. So I set the intention that I want to have communication with someone from that life. I want someone to talk to me, basically. I'm like, if you exist right now, say something to me. So I'm like waiting, nothing happens. Days go by. I'm like, okay, maybe I'm not going to have like that voice that like comes and talks to me. And a lot of times most of the time Spirit's talking to you with your own voice. Insights that you have that you think are your own actually come from your spirit guides. So a lot of those like genius moments, genius ideas aren't you. It's Spirit coming through you, but it's just in your voice, because they don't want to freak you out. But I was like, I want to be freaked out. Like, I want to hear that voice. I want to know this feminine energy that's flowing through me. And now it's been about a week that I've had this intention. And last night I had that dream. And in that dream, I didn't see Saraswati herself, but I really felt her presence. And I felt like she was the one showing me, and she is the one who's been guiding me to really work beside me to make my dreams come true. First of all, she's the reason I have these dreams. She's the reason why I want to be a writer and spread knowledge and have podcasts, and why I'm driven by this priestess-like energy is all because of Saraswati flowing through me. But then also the doors that have opened for me, meeting Deepak, which I discuss in one of the episodes, this amazing synchronicity of how that happened. And the next book deal that I have, and all of these things, I really don't think that it was me by myself. I believe that Saraswati is helping me through all of this. So just to be able to have that pinpointed of like, yes, this is where you're from and I'm here with you, is like more than enough to know I'm on the right path. And as I was walking to yoga today, I'm walking by the store, and someone just wrote in marker on the window, "You are on the right path." And I took a picture of it. It's on my Instagram right now, but it's like, sometimes we're waiting for that sign and we're waiting for that thing, and it doesn't come and it doesn't come. And as long as we hold on to that intention and keep doing the work, I truly believe that having that discussion with my deceased grandfather helped me be able to reach Saraswati, because we need to have that relationship with everyone around us. The blood family that we were born with is not a coincidence. It's for a reason. We chose our parents. We chose this ancestry. because our soul wanted to have these experiences for its highest evolvement. So my soul chose to be the granddaughter of this amazing practical businessman, to have his genes, his entrepreneurial spirit come through me. But then you also have your soul family, the people that you are not related to on a blood level, but you feel like in a soul level. And sometimes your blood family, you aren't really vibrating on the same soul level, but it's a different kind of love. And you need to make peace with both of those things, because if you have a horrible relationship with your blood family, there's always going to be issues with connecting with that soul family. For me, when I was having issues with my mom, when she wasn't on the same page as me of spirituality, Ayurveda, she wasn't feeling any of this. It was really hard for me because I was walking through life thinking, does everyone have mom issues? I hate her, blah, 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 but like also still wanting to talk to her because she's my mom. And now, I mean, I woke up and I told her this, and she was like, that's so amazing that you were able to access that. And like, this is from someone who is like, you see past lives, you need to go to therapy. And like, to have her be like, oh my God, like, yes, that's totally where you're from. It's so affirming and really makes me become whole. So I know it's a process, and many of you guys have messaged me before, like, well, what do I do when that toxic person is my mother or my father or someone close to me? And I do think you need to take that space to really find out who you are without their influences. I wouldn't be where I am if I didn't take that, year away from my family and distancing myself mentally from them for kind of a few years to figure out who I am. But now that I've been able to come full circle, we can accept and love each other for who we are. And I think that's helped me reach these higher levels of really seeing things. So it's all interconnected. Every single piece of work that you're doing is helping. Just spending time with your grandparents that are alive right now, that is helping you reach your past lives. Just clearing out any blocks in your life. Forgiving your ex. If you're still holding on to that hate and that resentment, you're not going to be able to evolve. You're not going to be able to fully awaken as a channel when you're harboring all of this distress. Maybe it's an old friend and there's still animosity, or there's jealousy, or maybe a toxic person that you're friends with who's not vibrating on the same frequency as you. So I like to think of it as opening a file cabinet, and you're thinking about your life and different relationships and aspects of it, and you're clearing out that file cabinet, and you're noticing, okay, well, maybe over here I need a little bit of adjustment, or like maybe over here needs a little bit of tidiness. And once you've sorted out that file cabinet, the cleaner it gets, the better you're able to operate as a whole. So to become a clear channel to awaken to your past lives, it's doing the everyday work, realizing any negative vibrations that you are holding on to, whether it's towards yourself, your own lack. Maybe if you are not a believer, it's never going to happen. If you hold this, you know what, spirit, I don't believe in you, so come down and show me. It's going to be like, no, you don't believe in me, so I'm definitely not going to show up. You have to be a believer in it, and you can't fake it because spirit's in your mind. So it knows if you're just like, oh yeah, I really believe in you, show up now. It knows you can't trick spirit. And sometimes it takes listening to someone else's story, which is why I share mine, to help you realize, oh wow, like maybe there's more to this. Maybe it can happen. And we're human. We're always going to hold on to that. I don't know. Is it true? Is it just a coincidence? It's always going to be there. Even for me, sometimes things happen. I'm like, I don't know. Maybe it's just a coincidence. Maybe, I don't know. But you have to have that underlying belief that like everything happens for a reason and everything is so divinely orchestrated. And then when things like this happen to you, that you're seeing like ancient maps, you're like, wow, this is proof. But you have to let go of your need for proof in order to get there. So become a believer, clear up any negative vibrations you're holding on to. Build a relationship with your blood family, because they are the ones that your soul has chosen for a reason, not coincidentally. And even if you chose a family that you really don't see eye to eye with, maybe your soul chose it so you can be stronger, or be more compassionate, or be more loving, or be more accepting. Sometimes we choose abusive parents because our souls wanted to learn how to have radical independence. An amazing example of this is the guy who started Hay House. I'm blanking on his name, but he he was sharing about how he basically grew up in orphanages and, oh, Dwayne Dyer. Yes. Wayne Dyer. Yeah. So he basically grew up in orphanages, had a horrible child rearing. It was just him and his brother going from one foster home to an orphanage and this and that. And he realized as he became older that he chose this path because he wanted to learn radical self-reliance, and that's what he teaches. And he created Hay House and published many books and became an incredible thinker and author. So even your hardships were chosen by you. So making peace with all of that, understanding that, going deep within, understanding this life. We don't want to be like, oh, I want to learn all my past lives when we haven't fully understood this one that we're living in right now. So I frequently, especially when I was deep in my involvement, I would write down every year of my life. I think what happened that year, what were the things that I learned, what happened each month even. And it's harder when you go back, but you have all those memories within you. You can always access them, and really understanding the kind of red thread that's been going through your whole life. And, oh, well, this happened. I met this person because it brought me here. And if I wasn't here, I couldn't have done this, and doing this has helped me do that. And then, noticing that string that's been carrying you until this very day, because it's not a coincidence at all. And the more that you can understand that it's not a coincidence, the more rapidly things start flowing for you, the more able you are to access those past lives, because your soul is like, okay, well, you understand your purpose in this life. Now let me give you a glimpse of your past life so you can get even a fuller picture. So do the work, notice where you're at today, and continue building on it. There's always things that in this life, no matter how spiritually aware you think you are, we're still human. We still have traumas. We still have pains. We still have emotions. Doing that thing with my grandfather, really woke up a lot of things within me that I'm like, wow, I still feel pain about that. But it just reminds you that the process is a process, because it's never over, and it gets easier, but you're always going to have those things. So don't feel judgmental on yourself of, well, I'm not awakened, I'm still hurt, I'm still this, I'm still that. Make peace with that, but also don't expect it to be totally eradicated from your memory, because it was put in your life to make you stronger and to make you who you are today. And who you are today is going to make you who you are tomorrow, and it keeps on building. And the more in tuned you are with that, the more beautifully it will develop, and you will be able to evolve into your highest self before you know it, because you already are at your highest self, considering where you were in your past. And it's just the beginning, because right now we're in this divine feminine era where things are flowing more faster than ever before. And before, the kind of realizations it would take people like 20 years, like in therapy, to think of, we are now experiencing in seconds. Like, we're experiencing a flash, a moment, especially with deep spiritual healing work. You're able to go through shifts that it would take you a lifetime in therapy to go through. So use that as good. And remember, we're here to serve. There's no point in knowing everything about your past lives and this and that if you're not using it for good. And they say the soul evolved more rapidly when there is a more percentage of wanting to serve than wanting to receive. So when you're at least 51% wanting to serve and less than 49% wanting to receive, that's how your soul begins evolving more rapidly, which you'd be surprised is really, really hard to actually come by, because most of us, we've lived our whole lives for survival, which is totally understandable. And it's always been me first, because that's what's going to keep us alive. But when you start putting, not just, I don't mean other people first, like, hurt yourself in order to serve or stand in front of a bulldozer. It doesn't have to be like that, but putting the greater good of humanity before your own best interest. And most of the time they go hand in hand. What best serves you best serves the greater good. But for example, being your highest self so you can best serve versus being it so you can have a lot of fame and money. Do you see the difference? They're both you doing it, whatever it is you want to do, but for a different purpose. So we need to get to that at least 51% wanting to serve others versus ourselves. And that's going to help with our soul's evolvement and allow us to become more clear channels to notice these past lives so we can use the wisdom that we've gained in them to best serve the needs of the planet today, because we've chosen to evolve at this time in this day and age for a very purpose. And you've been given all of those experiences to best prepare you to share those gifts with the world today. It's so beautiful when you think about it, because the universe is such a perfectly orchestrated ecosystem. And when you look at anything in nature, you look at a leaf, you look at sacred geometry, you look at ocean waves, it's all so perfect. It's like this web, this interconnected web that's like, wow, like God created this, universe created this, someone created this. It's more than just something that you can notice and not really think much of. It's like, wow, there's more to this. And the universe is part of that. It's not, those snowflakes don't just exist in snowflakes, but we are all part of that snowflake. We are all part of that beautiful spider web, that beautiful grid of sacred geometry that you sometimes see on the ground or in a mountain. It's everywhere. We're all interconnected by this sacred geometry, which sounds, again, really trippy and woo-woo and weird. But when you realize that you are listening to this podcast for a reason. There are strings that are connected to all of us, and sometimes we have to hear a certain word or overhear a certain conversation or listen to a certain podcast to receive this one exact message, one word, one emotion. And that's all we needed to carry through for the rest of our lives. And maybe this is the first time you've ever listened to my podcast, heard my voice, you don't know anything about me, and you just need to hear this episode and you're good. Maybe it's that. We don't know, and that's why we have to keep on using our intuition to go with the flow, go where the universe wants us to be, continue going down that river of life and stopping by whatever the river streams in our direction and continuing to our higher purpose. So thank you so much for listening, for being a part of this beautiful new paradigm that is awakening. And I am so honored to be here in service for all of you. If you are not a member of my private Facebook community, Mind Body Balancers, aka the Highest Self Podcast Facebook group, please join. I have the link in the info, the show notes, and I discuss a lot more about spiritualities, chakra, balancing, koshas, which are the subtle layer bodies that exist outside of our physical bodies, all in my book, The Idiot's Guide to Ayurveda, which is going to be out in bookstores August 8th. If you haven't pre-ordered, it's on Amazon right now, and you can also find it at Barnes & Nobles and other places. So I really go deep into the Vedic view of spirituality and what that means, and different tips and tricks that you can use to help harness your own intuitive capabilities and notice things when they're on our periphery before they smack us right in the head. So I'm really looking forward to sharing this book with you all. It comes out in the Lionsgate portal 8/8, which again, I didn't choose that date. The publishers chose it for me last year, and goes to show we are all in sacred flow. Nothing is a coincidence. That's what Guruji Deepak Chopra always says. And surrender to it, live it, love it, and rise up to the calling. Namaste.